I've always believed a mother knows when something is wrong with her child, that invisible string that tugs at your heart, tightening with every heartbeat of fear. That night, it nearly strangled me. It was almost midnight when my phone rang. I was half asleep in my armchair, the television buzzing quietly in the background. I remember the sound, that shrill, panicked ringtone that cut through the stillness of my living room like a blade. "Mrs. Carter?" The voice on the other end was shaky, uncertain. "This is Officer Reed from the County Sheriff's Department. There's been an accident." My breath caught. "Who?" "Your son. Daniel Carter. We found him off Route 19, near Miller's Creek." My heart stopped. "Found him? What do you mean, found him?" There was a pause. "He's alive, barely. You should come right away." The world blurred. My coat, my keys, the cold night air, everything became a haze of motion and noise. I don't remember the drive, only the desperate sound of my own breathing, the way my hands trembled so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. When I arrived, the place was lit up by flashing red and blue lights. The ditch ran along a narrow stretch of road surrounded by woods. Rain had turned the dirt to mud, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. And there, under the beam of a flashlight, I saw my son. He was lying twisted among the reeds, face pale, shirt soaked with blood. His right arm hung at an unnatural angle, his lips trembling as if he were still trying to speak. "Daniel!" I screamed, stumbling toward him. A paramedic caught my arm, but I shoved past, falling to my knees beside him. His eyes fluttered open, glazed, confused, and full of pain. He tried to lift his head, but I pressed a shaking hand against his cheek. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here. I'm right here." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. His voice came out a broken whisper. It was, "My wife," and then his eyes rolled back, his body going limp as the paramedics rushed in. Those words, "it was my wife," lodged themselves in my chest like shards of glass. I watched as they lifted him onto the stretcher, his face ghostly under the flashing lights. I could barely breathe. His wife, Emily, had called me only hours earlier, cheerful and calm. She'd said Daniel was working late, that everything was fine. Now my son was fighting for his life, and the last thing he'd said pointed straight at her. At the hospital, the hours crawled. Machines beeped steadily in. The ICU as I sat outside his room, my mind replaying the scene over and over, the rain, the blood, the whisper. The doctors said he had suffered a severe head injury and multiple fractures. He was lucky to be alive. They weren't sure if he'd wake up soon. Emily arrived an hour later. She looked perfect, as always, her dark hair pulled neatly into a bun, her coat spotless despite the storm outside. But her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She ran toward me the second she saw me. "Oh my God, Linda," she sobbed, clutching my arms. "What happened? Is he?" I flinched at her touch. I didn't mean to, but something in me recoiled instinctively. "They said you found him," she asked, her voice breaking. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," I said softly, studying her face. "He almost died." Her lips quivered. Who could have done this to him? That question should have sounded innocent, natural even, but the way she said it, too quickly, too smoothly, sent a chill down my spine. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, the weight of Daniel's final words pressing against my chest like a secret I wasn't ready to share. When morning came, Daniel was still unconscious. Emily dozed in the waiting room, curled up in a chair, while I stood at the window watching the rain streak down the glass. I couldn't stop thinking about their marriage. They'd been together 5 years, living in a neat little house on the edge of town. From the outside, they looked perfect. Emily, the elegant high school teacher, and Daniel, my sweet, hard-working mechanic. But I'd seen cracks lately. A few months ago, Daniel had shown up at my house with bruises on his arms. He brushed it off, said it was from work. But I knew better. Once, I caught a glimpse of fear in his eyes when Emily called him. The kind of fear you can't fake. I'd wanted to ask him about it, but he always changed the subject. "She's been stressed," he'd say. "She doesn't mean it." And I, coward that I was, let it go. Now, sitting in that sterile hospital corridor, I realized maybe I shouldn't have. By afternoon, The police arrived to take my statement. Officer Reed, the same one who'd called me, approached with a grim look. "Mrs. Carter, we found Daniel's truck about a quarter mile from the ditch," he said. "It looks like he swerved off the road. But there's something odd." Odd. He handed me a photo from his tablet. The driver's side door was wide open, the seatbelt cut cleanly in half. "This wasn't an accident," he said. "Someone wanted him out of that truck." A wave of nausea washed over me. "Have you talked to his wife?" He nodded. "We have. She said he left home around 9 to pick up some tools from his shop. Claims she was home all night." I swallowed hard. "Do you believe her?" He hesitated. "We're keeping an open mind." But the way he said it told me he didn't. That evening, I went to Daniel's house to feed their dog and pick up a few things for the hospital. Emily had insisted she wanted to come with me, but I said I needed to do it alone. The house was too quiet. Every shadow seemed sharper, every sound louder. I found the dog, Max, whining near the back door, his leash tangled. He looked anxious, like he'd been left too long without care. As I filled his bowl, something caught my eye, a smear of mud on the kitchen floor, near the door leading to the garage. It wasn't much, just a few footprints. But the pattern was wrong, not Daniel's heavy work boots, but something smaller. A woman's. I followed the prints into the garage. That's when I saw it. On the passenger seat of Daniel's old truck, tucked halfway under the seat, was a torn piece of fabric, soft beige with faint bloodstains. I picked it up carefully. It looked like part of a blouse. Emily's favorite one. In fact, I'd seen her wear it last week at dinner. My stomach dropped. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation, that maybe she'd been in the truck earlier that day, that maybe the blood wasn't his. But deep down, I knew the truth I'd been avoiding. My son hadn't crashed by accident. And the last thing he said before losing consciousness wasn't confusion. It was a warning. It was my wife. I locked the garage and left, the fabric clenched tightly in my hand. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the night still felt heavy. The town was quiet, too quiet, and as I drove back to the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. When I arrived, Emily was standing outside the ICU, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked startled when she saw me, quickly ending the call. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. She blinked. "Just my sister." Her voice was calm, but her eyes, wide, darting, told another story. That's when I noticed something else, a faint scratch along her right wrist. She tried to hide it by crossing her arms, but not fast enough. I didn't say a word. But in that moment, I made a silent promise to my son. If she had anything to do with what happened to him, I would find out. No matter what it took. The next morning, the hospital felt colder. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly above, the air sharp with disinfectant and coffee. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel in that ditch, pale, broken, whispering those 4 words that refused to leave my mind. Emily was sitting by his bedside when I walked in, her head bowed, her fingers gently tracing the sheets near his hand. To anyone else, she might have looked like a grieving wife. To me, she looked like a performance, every movement carefully rehearsed. "Any change?" I asked quietly. She shook her head, eyes red-rimmed. "No. The doctors said he's still not responding. But I keep talking to him. I think he can hear me." Her voice cracked perfectly on the last word, almost too perfectly. I watched her for a long moment before setting Daniel's bag down on the chair. Inside were his clothes, a few photos, and his wedding ring, which had been taken off during surgery. I placed it on the table beside his bed. When Emily saw it, her face flickered, just for a second. A quick, involuntary twitch that didn't match her tears. "Where did you find that?" she asked. "In his truck," I lied. "Under the seat." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Oh. I didn't realize he wasn't wearing it." That told me more than she realized. A few hours later, Officer Reed called. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "we've gone through your son's truck again. There are signs someone was in the passenger seat during the crash. Hair strands, not his." My heart raced. "Did you check whose?" "We're sending them to the lab." But here's the thing, tire tracks from another car were found near the ditch. Same night, same time. Looks like someone followed him before he went off the road. Followed him? Yes, We're not ruling out foul play. When I hung up, my hands were trembling. Emily was still in the room, scrolling through her phone, pretending to check messages. I watched her carefully. Her posture was stiff, her gaze flicking to the hallway every few seconds. Like she was waiting for someone. Finally, I asked, Emily, did Daniel tell you where he was going that night? She froze. He said he had to go pick something up from the shop. Why? Did he say what? Her eyes darted toward me, then away. Just, something for work. I don't know. But I could tell from her tone that she did know. She was hiding something. By evening, I went back to Daniel's house again. Something inside me refused to rest. I needed answers, the truth behind his last words, behind her tears, behind all of it. The house was dimly lit, the air still holding the faint scent of her perfume. I went straight to their study. Daniel wasn't much for paperwork, but Emily kept meticulous records, bills, receipts, notes all neatly filed in folders labeled by month. That's where I found it, a bank statement that didn't add up. A large withdrawal, nearly $20,000, made 3 days before the crash. It was Daniel's account, but the signature on the slip wasn't his. It was Emily's. I felt my pulse quicken. $20,000, gone. And Daniel never mentioned it. As I flipped through more papers, something else caught my eye, an envelope tucked at the bottom of the drawer. Inside was a single photo. Daniel, standing beside another woman. Not Emily. The woman was smiling, her arm looped through his, and in the background was the sign for Henderson Auto. My son's workshop. On the back, written in faded ink, to my favorite mechanic, thanks for fixing more than just my car. My mind swirled. A coworker? A friend? Or something else? I heard the creak of floorboards and froze. Linda. Emily's voice came from behind me. I turned slowly. She was standing in the doorway, her coat still damp from the rain, her eyes cold and sharp. What are you doing here? She asked, her tone suddenly stripped of the softness she wore like armor. I came for some of Daniel's things, I said evenly. The police asked if he kept any business documents here. Her gaze flicked to the papers in my hand. You shouldn't be going through our private files. They're my son's, I replied. And right now, he's fighting for his life. She stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the wooden floor. You think I had something to do with that, don't you? I didn't answer. She smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. You've always hated me. From the moment he married me, you never thought I was good enough. This isn't about what I thought, I said quietly. It's about what he said before he passed out. Her smile vanished. What did he say? I held her gaze. He said your name. A long silence filled the room, heavy, dangerous. Then she laughed. A short, sharp sound that didn't reach her eyes. You think that means something? He was half dead, Linda. People say all kinds of things when they're delirious. Maybe. But it didn't sound like delirium to me. Her eyes hardened. Be careful with what you're suggesting. I took a step forward. Did you know about the $20,000? Her expression faltered just slightly, but enough. Daniel and I were planning a move. We wanted to buy a new place out of town. Without telling me, you wouldn't understand. No, Emily, I said softly, I understand perfectly. You were planning something. But not a move. Her lips parted to respond, but the sound of a car pulling up outside interrupted her. She glanced toward the window, a flash of panic flickering across her face before she quickly composed herself. I think you should go now, she said coldly. I picked up my purse, tucking the envelope with the photo inside it. I will. But this isn't over. Her eyes followed me as I left, and I swear I could feel them burning into my back. That night, I went home to an empty house. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. I poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't drink, my mind replaying every detail. Who was S? Why did Emily withdraw the money? And who was she meeting in the middle of the night? As I sat in the dark, My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You should stop digging, Linda. Some things are better left buried. My heart dropped. I stood slowly, staring at the message. No name. No hint. Just those words. I typed back, hands shaking. Who is this? No reply. I tried to call the number, disconnected. I rushed to my front door and locked it, checking every window, every shadow. The silence outside suddenly felt too loud, too watchful. That was when I noticed something lying on my porch. A single white envelope. No stamp, no writing. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a small, crumpled photo, the same one I'd taken from Emily's drawer. Only now, someone had drawn a red X over Daniel's face. The next morning, I went straight to Officer Reed. This was on my porch, I told him, handing him the envelope. His eyes widened. Where did you get this photo? It was in my son's house. Emily didn't want me to see it. He frowned. We've been trying to track a woman named Sandra Hill. She used to work at your son's shop. Quit a month ago. She's gone off the grid. We think she might be connected to the accident. Sandra, I whispered. The S on the photo. He nodded. If she's involved, we need to find her. I hesitated. What about Emily? Reed sighed. We're looking into her too. But right now, your son's accident might be part of something. Bigger, money laundering, maybe blackmail. If we're right, Daniel got caught in the middle. Blackmail. It made sense, the money, the fear, the secrecy. But if Daniel had been blackmailed, who was pulling the strings? And what did Emily have to do with it? That night, back at the hospital, I sat beside my son's bed, holding his hand. His breathing was steady, the faint beeping of the monitor a fragile rhythm of life. Daniel, I whispered. If you can hear me, please, wake up. I need to know the truth. His fingers twitched. Just slightly, but enough to make me freeze. Then, for the first time in days, his eyes fluttered open. Mom, he croaked, his voice dry, weak. I leaned in, tears blurring my vision. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. He swallowed hard. Don't trust her. My heart stopped. Who? His gaze shifted, not to me, but to the doorway. I turned. Emily stood there, watching us. And in her hand, she was holding Daniel's phone. For the next 2 days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Liam's pale face in that ditch, the dried blood on his lips, his hand reaching toward me as he whispered those 4 haunting words. It was my wife. Detective Moore called the following evening. Mrs. Bennett, he said, his voice low and cautious, we've analyzed the fingerprints on the crowbar. One set belongs to your son. The other, we're still confirming. Still confirming? I repeated, my heart pounding. You found something, didn't you? There's a partial match, he admitted. We think it could belong to a woman. But we can't make conclusions yet. We'll need both your son and daughter-in-law to come in for questioning once he's stable. After hanging up, I sat in the dim kitchen, the smell of coffee long gone cold. The silence of the house felt heavier than ever, like the walls were holding their breath. I couldn't help replaying every interaction I'd had with Emily over the last few months. The nervous glances. The late-night phone calls. The unexplained scratches on her wrist. Had I ignored the signs? That night, I drove back to the hospital. Visiting hours were long over, but the nurse on duty, an older woman named Carol, had grown used to seeing me linger around. She smiled softly. He's resting. The swelling on his head is down. Doctor says he might wake fully by morning. I thanked her and stepped quietly into the room. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was the only sound. I sat down beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. Liam, I whispered, if you can hear me, please, just open your eyes. Tell me what happened. Tell me it's not as bad as it seems. His eyelids fluttered slightly, and for a moment I thought I saw a tear slide down his cheek. I clasped his hand, squeezing it gently. I'm right here, I said, my voice trembling. You're safe now. Then, suddenly, his lips moved. I leaned closer, heart pounding. Mom, his voice was hoarse, a rasp more than a word. "I'm here, baby," I said. "Don't trust her." The monitor beeped faster. I froze. Don't trust who, Liam? But his eyes rolled back, and the nurse rushed in, adjusting his four. "He's okay," she reassured me. "Just try not to excite him. He's weak." I nodded numbly, stepping out into the hallway, my hands shaking. Outside, the cold night air hit me hard. I leaned against my car, trying to catch my breath. Don't trust her. Those 3 words replayed again and again in my mind. I pulled out my phone and opened Emily's social media profile. She hadn't posted anything in days. But one thing caught my eye, a photo from 2 weeks ago, tagged in a location outside town. A remote gas station. The caption read, "Road trip to clear my head." I zoomed in on the background. There was someone's reflection in the glass behind her. A man. It wasn't Liam. My hands trembled as I took a screenshot and saved it. I needed answers. The next morning, Liam was awake. He looked fragile but alert. His voice was rough, his eyes sunken. When he saw me, he managed a weak smile. "Hey, Mom," I almost cried hearing him speak. "Hey, sweetheart. You scared me half to death." He blinked slowly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Liam," I said gently, pulling a chair closer, "I need you to tell me what happened. You said something about Emily." His face stiffened. She wasn't alone that night." "What do you mean?" "She's been seeing someone," he whispered, staring blankly at the wall. "A man named Ryan. I found out 2 nights before the accident. I went to confront her at the old quarry road. I thought she'd tell me the truth, but she brought him with her." He winced, clutching his side. They argued. Ryan got angry. I tried to leave, but he hit me from behind. Everything went dark after that. Tears welled in my eyes. "Oh my God, Liam." I heard her yelling, he continued weakly. She said something like, "We can't let him tell anyone." The room spun around me. He looked at me, eyes pleading. "Mom, she didn't mean to hurt me. She was scared. He's dangerous. Please, promise me you won't go near her alone." I nodded, though my heart screamed otherwise. When I left the hospital, I drove straight to Emily's house. The blinds were drawn, the lights dim. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. A movement by the window caught my eye, Emily's silhouette, pacing back and forth on the phone. I cracked the window slightly and heard faint words carried by the wind. "No, he's awake now. Yes, I'll handle it." Handle what? A surge of cold fear rushed through me. That was enough for now. I didn't want to spook her. Instead, I drove to the police station and showed Detective Moore the screenshot of Emily's gas station post. He studied it, frowning. "You did good bringing this in. That man's face might be enough to identify him." He handed the photo to a technician. "We'll run it through our system." "But Mrs. Bennett," he gave me a cautious look. "Until we confirm, please don't confront her. If she's involved, she could be desperate." I nodded, though inside, I knew I wouldn't sit still waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Around 2 a.m., I heard a noise outside, the crunch of gravel. My heart raced. I peered through the curtains. A figure was standing at the edge of my yard. Tall. Still. Watching. I turned off the light and stepped back, pulse thundering in my ears. The shape moved slightly, then disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, I found fresh footprints near the gate. Someone had been there. I called Detective Moore, but he only said, "We'll send a patrol car by. Stay cautious. Stay cautious." As if that could help me sleep. The following afternoon, the detective called back. "We identified the man," he said. "Ryan Keller. History of violence, restraining orders. He worked with Emily at the real estate office 3 years ago." My stomach twisted. "Where is he now?" "Missing," Moore said grimly. "We're putting out a bulletin." I hung up, staring at my reflection in the window. Emily had entangled herself with a dangerous man, and now my son was paying the price. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily wasn't just a victim. That evening, as the sun set, I returned to the lake, the one near where they found Liam. The air was still, the water reflecting streaks of red and gold. I walked along the edge, kicking at the gravel. And then, something glimmered in the dirt. I knelt. A small silver locket. Half buried in mud. I wiped it clean. Inside was a tiny photo of Liam and Emily and a folded piece of paper. My hands shook as I opened it. Scrawled in Emily's handwriting were the words, "If something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. He knows everything." The wind howled through the trees. My heart froze. Emily had left a clue, not for me, maybe, but for anyone who found it. Someone had turned on both of them. And whoever he was, wasn't finished yet. When I found that locket by the lake, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time since that night, I wasn't just afraid, I was angry. Angry at whoever had done this to my son, angry at Emily for keeping secrets, angry at myself for ignoring my instincts. I drove straight to Detective Moore's office and dropped the locket on his desk. "She left this," I said, my voice trembling. She was scared. She knew someone was after her. He unfolded the note, frowning deeply. "We'll send this for analysis, but if what you're saying is true, Emily might be in danger right now." I swallowed hard. "Then we need to find her before he does." That night, the storm hit. Rain poured so heavily it blurred the roads into rivers of grey. I couldn't stay home, not after what I'd seen, not after that note. I drove toward Emily's house again, headlights cutting through the sheets of rain. Her front door was wide open. My stomach dropped. "Emily," I called, stepping into the dark hallway. The smell of damp wood and perfume hung in the air. The living room light flickered, and then I heard it. A muffled cry from upstairs. I moved carefully, heart hammering against my ribs. At the top of the stairs, the sound grew clearer, someone sobbing. I pushed open the bedroom door. Emily sat on the floor, her back against the bed, hands trembling as she clutched her phone. Her face was streaked with tears. When she saw me, her eyes widened in shock. "Linda, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I said softly. The door was open. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but her voice cracked. "He's coming. Ryan. He called me. He said he knows I talked to the police." "Where is he now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "He said he'd finish what he started." Thunder cracked outside, shaking the windows. "Emily," I said, stepping closer, "you have to come with me. We'll go to the police station. You'll be safe there." She hesitated, eyes darting toward the window. "I can't. If he sees me leave," before she could finish, the sound of a car engine roared outside. Headlights flashed through the rain, stopping in front of the house. "Ryan. Hide," I hissed, pulling her toward the closet. We slipped inside just as the front door slammed open downstairs. Heavy footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. "Emily." His voice was slurred but sharp. "You think you can run from me?" Emily's hand clutched mine so tightly it hurt. I could feel her shaking. The footsteps grew louder. Up the stairs. Every creak of the floorboard made my heart lurch. Then the bedroom door opened. Ryan stood there tall, soaked, a dark jacket clinging to him. His eyes were wild. In his hand, a metal crowbar. The same one they'd found near Liam. "Where are you?" he growled, stepping inside. "I told you what would happen if you went to the cops." I held my breath as he moved closer. He was inches from the closet door when, "Police. Drop your weapon." The shout came from downstairs. Ryan froze. The flash of red and blue lights illuminated the window. He bolted for the back door, but two officers burst in from the kitchen. A struggle followed, shouting, the clang of metal on tile, then silence. When it was over, Detective Moore appeared in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. "You two all right?" Emily collapsed into sobs. I just nodded, my whole body shaking. At the station, everything came out. Emily confessed that Ryan had been blackmailing her for months, threatening to expose her affair to Liam unless she helped him steal money from their business account. When Liam discovered the truth and tried to confront her, Ryan panicked. He hit Liam and left him for dead, warning Emily to stay silent. "She wanted to tell you," Moore said gently as we sat in his office afterward. She left that note by the lake the night before we found Ryan's car. She must have known he was losing control. Ryan was charged with attempted murder, assault, and extortion. The case made headlines for weeks, but none of that mattered to me. All I cared about was my son, and somehow, despite everything, he was healing. 2 weeks later, Liam was finally strong enough to leave the hospital. When he stepped out into the sunlight, a bandage still across his forehead, I hugged him so tight he laughed. "Careful, Mom," he said, smiling weakly. "I'm still fragile." "I almost lost you once," I whispered. "I'm not letting go again." He glanced toward the parking lot where Emily stood, waiting nervously. "She's been through hell too," he said softly. I followed his gaze. Emily looked thinner, paler, but there was honesty in her eyes now, a pain she no longer tried to hide. "She made a terrible mistake," he continued. "But she saved me in the end. She told more where Ryan was hiding." I nodded slowly. "Maybe that's her way of making things right." He squeezed my hand. "I think I still believe in forgiveness." A month later, the lake looked different. The police tape was gone. The surface was calm again, mirroring the blue sky. Liam and I stood side by side on the shore. The autumn wind rustled through the trees. "Mom," he said quietly, "I keep thinking about how close I came to never seeing this again." I looked at him, tears welling up. Maybe that's life's cruel gift, reminding us how fragile it all is. He smiled faintly. "Emily wants to start counseling. She's trying, Mom. For me. For herself." "That's good," I said, meaning it. "People can change. Sometimes pain is what forces us to." We stood there for a long time, neither of us speaking, just listening to the soft lapping of the water. Somewhere in that silence, I felt peace, not because everything was fixed, but because we had survived it. That night, as I closed my journal, I wrote one last line under all my scattered notes and memories. "Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it gives you a reason to face tomorrow." And for the first time since that awful day in the ditch, I finally believed it.